Did you know that for hundreds of years, there was no such thing as right and left shoes? They were just shoes. And then someone decided, and maybe they asked the question, they said, how can I make these better? How can I improve these? And then to this day, hundreds of years after whoever this was, just shaped the shoe to someone's feet. Now we all do it and we just take it for granted. But there's an opportunity in life to always improve, but not in a way where you become psychotic and chase perfection with everything, but in a joyful way, a fun way, where you're like, how can I serve the world? How can I create value in the world? There's a great quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson that says, the mind, once stretched by a new idea, never returns to its original dimensions. How beautiful is that? And so today, my goal is to stretch your mind a little bit, and I'm going to touch upon a few things. I'm going to include some research. I'm going to also tell you about a breakthrough that is going to change everything in the world. So as you may or may not know, one of my jobs in life, back in 2008, I was writing my goals down, and my first goal wasn't a regular goal, it wasn't an outcome goal. It was to be, feel, and give my best. So that's where the birth of the lion and lamb metaphor came from. And so shortly thereafter, I ran 51 miles around a track through the middle of the night for a Relay for Life, for raise money for cancer. And during that training, it was so brutal. What happened was my coach, I only had 9 weeks to prepare and I wasn't running. And he was having me run like 5 hours a day. I had 2 days off the whole time. And my body just couldn't sustain it, so I was in so much pain. And so what happened is I was running. I lived on the beach at the time, still do, but a different beach. And I was running on the sand, like in these trails through a park. It's obviously closed, but it's like midnight. And I'm in so much pain. My knee was killing me. Now I have no knee pain. How awesome is that? Learned a lot from it. So there was a gift in it. But at the time, I was in incredible pain. And when you run for 5 hours, and you're in incredible pain, your mind goes to special places. I think I was hallucinating, but I was thinking of a video I saw earlier in the day. And this video was of some jackasses who hired a safari and they went and shot a lion. That's actually how they raised the money for preservation or whatever, conservation. But besides the point, these guys, I grew up with guns, so I had a rifle when I was 4, literally. So I walked around with one, a 22 caliber, and so I'm very comfortable with it. In my middle school, one of my classes was hunter safety in a rifle. And so we had a shooting range in our school. And so we had the first day of deer season off from school because no one would show up. And people will hunt deer. There's an overpopulation of deer in that area. People hit them in cars a lot. They decimate crops. And so there has to be a population control, and then people eat the deer. So I share all that for you because if you've never handled a gun, if you're not familiar with it, it can be really scary. And then your fear jumps in, and fear-based beliefs will cause you to shut down your love-based beliefs, and then you're not going to learn from this CoachCast. So it's really important that you understand that everybody has 2 sets of belief. You have love-based beliefs, which are truth. Those are the things that are constructive, productive, that create energy in our lives. And then we have fear-based beliefs, which are destructive. Every mistake, every regret is born in a state of fear. It may be anger, it may be rage, it may be sadness, depression, apathy, shame, whatever it is. So the negative beliefs are destructive. The positive or love-based beliefs are constructive, productive, energy enhancing. So your state determines what beliefs are expressed. So I share that with you. So right now, put yourself in a beautiful state. Take a deep breath. That's the fastest way. Smile for no reason. Or borrow from the past. Go back to your library of victories, of triumphs, of joyful moments, of grateful moments. Place your hands on your heart. Move around. Whatever it is, you know how to do this stuff, but it is up to us to own it, to take full responsibility how we feel, Because if we don't, we're not going to access the beliefs that will allow us to grow, to contribute, to really enjoy life, to have a sense of connection and love with yourself and with others, people you know and people you don't know. That is each of our responsibilities. And when we don't take responsibility for our state of being, we're the only one to blame. And everything in your life, where you stand today, everything has been created by you. Now, sometimes we look at it and we're like, no, that's bullshit. This person did this, that person did that. But when you scale it back and look at it, at some point you made a decision and you said yes or no to something that created this moment. And often it is many decisions, many actions and many inactions. But let's say it's not your fault, right? A lot of times it's not your fault. You can't control the world around you, but it is your responsibility to deal with it. It's been placed before you for a reason and a purpose. And if you resist it, it will stay. It will not go anywhere and it will push back. When you accept things as they are, like the old phrase, it is what it is, that used to annoy the shit out of me. But as I started understanding and being around really happy, successful, fulfilled people all the time, and people that are the opposite, I had this beautiful contrast where I could see, like, what does this person think compared to this person? What does this person do compared to this person? The ones that suffer they push, they resist, they bitch, they moan, they complain, they criticize. And it always comes back to them. So it's a big part of life. And there's a song with these words. You've heard it before. But a lot of times we hear things, but we don't utilize them. In life, you get what you give. I became a trainer by working for free. I did over 1,000 training sessions for free. I had to work at other jobs. I bartended, I fought for money, and I also skinned chickens, which I still love chicken to this day, so it didn't bother me at all. But I had to do it. I lived above a garage. In the winter, the pipes would freeze. I had to go to the gym to shower. And so, but I was willing to do that because of the experience. I got more experience in that time, in that year, than most people get in 10 years in my profession. And that experience and work with all these different people allowed me to develop my skills on a level, and that's how I won the world's best personal trainer contest every year they had it. Not because I'm so smart, but because I was around smart people and I noticed what they were doing. And I listened to my first Tony Robbins tapes when I was 12 years old, and now we're best friends. And so you have all these capabilities. You've already been successful, you're here, but sometimes we get to a level of success and we're wondering what else is there. And sometimes we get there, and the way we got there, if we were a committed achiever or a super achiever, what happens is it's just not sustainable. It's not something we can keep doing for when we're 60, 70, 80, 100 or something. And a lot of times we just don't want to do it. We're looking to evolve. And so the first step in doing that, to receive that guidance, is to manage and master your state of being, which is your thoughts and feelings. The union of thought and feeling, thought being the story we're telling ourselves all the time, creates a feeling. And the clearer that story, that picture develops, the more intense the emotion. And that emotion, the emotional state of being, the story we're telling with the feeling states we're creating, will cause us to make a decision, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously, and then we will take an action or we will avoid something. And that is how we created everything in our lives. Now, the cool thing with the human body, and the reason why I focus on the body, is because it is a clear reflection of your thoughts, feelings, actions, and inactions. It doesn't care about anything else. It just responds. And there are simple rules and principles that every human, no one is voided from this, every human must follow. I'm going to go through a checklist with you today on this CoachCast. Write it down, commit it to memory, and you will be a master of your physical body, and you will see how this all works. But the way you really master something is not listening to a CoachCast. That's part of it. But it is getting your hands dirty. So I have like some really, really wealthy clients, right? Like multi-billionaires. And then when I first started, I had like a family that's very, very wealthy, and I was around them all the time. And they really struggled because they had a cook. They had me as their trainer. They didn't have any accountability, so it was really hard for them to make progress because They just didn't get their hands dirty enough. They didn't understand the details of it enough. And then the grandmother, I won't say her name, but she owned it. She was a stage of life where she saw her grandkids and great-kids, just their health deteriorating, they're standing in front of a screen all day long. And she says, I am the matriarch of this family, and I am going to lead. And so I sat there and I taught her. I was like, this is a protein, this is a carb, this is a fat, this is what fiber is. And I taught her the principles. I taught her the checklist. And she, by her example, inspired her entire family to get incredibly healthy and fit. And no one in the family was like that. There was no one. And so it was transformational. And so that's why I'm going to share this with you today. It all starts by owning your state of being. And when you own your state of being, you have access to the constructive, love-based beliefs, the rules you live by, the software of your mind. But if you don't manage that, you will fall into the destructive path, the fear-based beliefs, and that is where things like chronic inflammation come from. And I'll tell you about that a little later. I'm going to do a whole other episode on this because that leads into what I mentioned earlier about this medical breakthrough that is going to change everything, especially people with autoimmune diseases, type 1 diabetes. But this doctor was he's just an incredible man. I spent a lot of time with him, talked his ears off, but he was more than happy to sit there and talk to me and show me everything and how his lab worked. But I'm going to share that with you. You won't be able to hear this anywhere else. But first, let's go through this checklist. So if you look at what really moves the needle, a lot of times people get stuck in whatever's in front of them. It's good information in, good feedback, good output, good input, good output. But a lot of times the information we're just being thrown in front of us, like in podcasts and stuff, it's bad information. It's often quite biased and it's not fact checked. And so, but it can be very convincing because they're on a screen and maybe they're an authority figure and these are the buttons you press to influence somebody. And so what I want to share with you today is no matter what anyone says, this applies to you. No matter anything you got going on, this applies to you. So here's the checklist. We're going to look at this in 3 categories. Mental conditioning, stimulus, so you need to challenge the body in certain ways, and then recovery. And so if you know these things and you know how to use them and to measure and modify them, you will know exactly how to do what I do. Got it? Now, most experts, most personal trainers don't know this, by the way. It's sad, but it's true. But let's start with mental conditioning. If you don't know what you want, how will you ever know if you're making progress or not? You have to know the destination. If you just jump in your car and start driving around and you don't know where you're going, it's kind of fruitless. So that's what most people do with their training. They just go to a gym or they start exercising, but they don't have no strategy. And a lot of times they think more is better and they end up tweaking things. They get frustrated because it's not working fast enough. Hello, you got to do this forever, just so you know. So you need to come with a mindset of mastery. Otherwise, you're going to start and stop a million times and eventually you'll just stop. Maybe not you guys, but regular people, right? But the first step is your North Star. Knowing, hey, this is my destination in the different areas of my life, but just for health right now, what about the distant future? Like when you're 70, 80, 90, 100, we need a compelling vision for that time. Something that really moves you, like you wake up, it's your 100th birthday, you stand up with tall, your ease, you move like a panther, you're strong, you can jump, you can run, you can swim, you have no limitations. And your mere movement, you're a living, shining example of what's possible. And you can change generations just by the words you speak because you have lived it. Like that's a beautiful thing. But you also need something for the next 3 to 6 months, a next milestone. Because otherwise that's so far away that you can put it off. So we need a little bit of urgency. And then say like, okay, I'm gonna train 6 times a week without fail according to plan, if that's where you're falling short. There's a point where that will be automated. And then you're like, all right, I'm not drinking enough water. For the next 3 months, I'm focused on drinking water and this is how I'm going to do it. I'm gonna stay hydrated. And if I get off track, I'll get right back on, right? And so whatever it is, but when we go through this checklist, there'll be ones where you're probably not doing it or not sure if you're doing it. So then look at those. You're not going to change all these at once. Write them down and then choose one or two. That's how you create lasting change. Okay, so that North Star process is you have the long-term compelling vision of your future, something big, beautiful, and inspiring. If it doesn't move you, you won't move towards it. It's that clear. If it excites you, it ignites you into action. The other thing is you need that next milestone. After that, you need a higher purpose for doing this. Like, it can't be the way you look. That's a side effect. But if your primary, I've done this for over 30 years. So if your primary reason for doing this is to change the way you look because you don't feel like you're enough as you are, the number in the scale affects your mood, that is the problem. That is the source. That is the root that we need to tear out and replace with something more constructive, more love-based, more kind, more empowering. And so that's part of the North Star. And then you look at this compelling vision of the future, your next milestone, and your higher purpose to do it. That higher purpose is always going to be something about, so training and fueling your body so that you can be, feel, and give your best to the world and to yourself, and to live greatly with no regrets. Something like that, to live like a lion who you were born to be, not a lamb. And then you say, who is this person? Who is this soul that could not only create this vision and this higher purpose, but would love to do it? What is that person's 3 most dominant emotional states throughout the day? What happens? How do they respond when things don't go their way? Who is this person? And what you're describing is you, your higher self, your lion, your lioness. But if you're not clear in this, life is hard, man, because you don't know your identity. You don't know how you need to show up to live a life that is empowering, that makes you feel successful, fulfilled, loved, and make you loving. This is all part of it. So we always start with the North Star. And you want to do this in the morning. Like I do as soon as I wake up, and then when I'm warming up for training, I remind myself of this, and I summon that. And so when I played football, there was a year, I read a book called The Mental Conditioning Bible by Kay Porter. One of my friends had it. His parents bought it for me. He was just sitting on his thing, and I asked if I could have it, and he gave it to me. And I read every page of that thing and did all the exercises. And one of the things was this visualization, that you imagine your best, you at your best. And if you don't have a best, think of someone. Like I'll watch a movie or a professional sports team. And I said, when I step on the field, I'm like this person. And like I remember the person I wanted to be like was this guy named Chuck Cecil. When he hit people, he blew them up. It looked like they threw a grenade at people. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And so when I stepped on the field, I saw like a tube of light, like a flames bursting from the earth. But it was only when I stepped on the field. When I stepped off the field, I went back to my center. And so it worked beyond, you'd have to experience it. But I went from not even playing to getting offers, and I played in college, but I was all conference and all that stuff. But it was in one season when I did this thing. I didn't change. I always trained, I always did everything, but when I added the mental conditioning, everything changed. I didn't have access to my resources, skills, and capabilities because I didn't have the right state of being. Does that make sense? Of course it does. That's why I said it. And so that's the North Star process. Now, you want to carry this with you throughout the day when you train. And then at the end of the day, you want to close the chapter. Close the chapter in the day. If you have trouble going to sleep and turning off your mind, then this will assist you greatly. This is something I learned from being around Tony all the time. Every time he comes off stage, when we have meetings, we do a debrief. But I call this clearing the slate. So I don't know if you ever heard this phrase, but clearing the slate is like a chalkboard. So if you have a chalkboard and throughout the day, it's all these thoughts, all these things going on, things you got done, things you didn't get done. And what you do is you're going through a daily ritual, a process of clearing the slate. So clearing that calculator so that there's not a bunch of information in your mind. You're going to close it down by reviewing the day. So you look back at your day, and if you had a plan, which you will after this, but you say, okay, how did today go? What went great? What could have went better? And what did I learn from it? And then you're going to say, what are 3 things that if I get those done, I will feel happy, successful, fulfilled, and I'll make progress? What are those 3 things? So if I only got done 3, and then make it in order of priority. If I just got done this one, that would make a difference. And so what you're telling your mind is you're setting the rules of the game. You're like, hey, how do I win the day? Because if we don't have clear guidelines, we always feel like there's more to do. We always feel like, I could have done more. Man, I got so much. And we feel overwhelmed, and that creates adrenaline and cortisol. And if you elevate that at night, it's hard to fall into deep restorative sleep. And then you wake up and you're still tired. So these may not sound like a big deal. These are things I teach that people generally don't do, like the North Star process and clearing the slate, closing the chapter in the day. But the ones that do it has profound effects on every aspect of your life. It's just easier to be your best self each day, and it accumulates. The more you do it, the more you just start to think this way. Like when I learned Tony's RPM, which was like 20 years ago or something like that, I just kept asking myself those questions. What's my outcome? What result do I want to create? Why is this important? Why do I want to do this? And then he says massive action plan. For me, I just say, what's my next intelligent action? Because I was getting too caught up in my head and trying to do too much. I just want to move one step at a time. What is that? And so I've said that so many times that it is just automated. Because the way you automate something, the way you learn to love training, for instance, is through focused, intentional repetition. So if every time you train, you dance around and you say, yeah, and you play a music that you love, and the whole time you're managing your state and you're smiling and you're laughing, you'll see why I do these things in your workouts, right? It's like smile while you do burpees. Why? Because we're wiring up joyful, determined presence with doing something difficult. What happens? Well, you start to train because that's how you deal with stress. Rather than stuffing your face with food, which most of us do, or distracting yourself with screens and just wasting time, now you're wiring up joyful, determined presence with doing difficult things. So if something doesn't go your way, instead of saying, oh man, this is bullshit, which is what I used to do, I say, all right, what's the goal here? Let's clean this up. Does this affect anybody else? And you just start asking the questions. But it starts with this process of starting your day with your North Star. And then at the end of the day, reviewing the day, the victories and the lessons, and also, what are the 3 things you're going to do the next day? And one thing I didn't mention, but I just do automatically, is before I start to close out the day, I pray, I place my hands on my heart, and I give thanks for everything I can think of, everything down to, like I cut my finger, and it was really messed up, and then I heal really fast. And so I was very grateful that I still had my finger. I didn't think I was going to get to keep the part of it, so I was pretty excited about that. But that was a while ago, but now I'm still thinking about it because it's there, and it's just the little things. It doesn't have to be big things. You could be happy that you have shoelaces. I don't know if you ever had a shoe without laces in it and it kept falling off when you run or something. Well, it's a great advantage when you have shoelaces. Just little things, because it will create that state of being. You are training yourself to live in love-based emotional states, and that's where you are ready for anything. There is a phrase in Latin, in omnia paratus, which means ready for anything. I have that on my notebook, my journal. I think about it all the time. I'm like, what do I need to do today? What do I need to do now that will prepare me for tomorrow? Really, anything that comes my way. Like when I train, my best friend weighs almost 300 pounds. And so I train to move that amount of weight, no matter what. In fact, every Sunday, which is today's the Sunday I'm recording this, I do a workout, which I just carry 300 pounds. I drag it, I put it on my back, I do all these things and just move it. So if there's ever a situation, if there's ever where there's an emergency, what do? I'm ready for it. Sorry, the alarm's going off there. So to review, North Star process. Then you're going to finish the day with clearing the slate. And then next, the stimulus. You know this one. Summon the lion. You are going to train with focus and presence. You're not just going to move your body and go through the motions. You are going to summon your highest and best self and then sustain it while you're doing challenging things. That transforms you. If you do that 6 times a week for 3 to 4 months, you just start to wake up that way and you start to love training. And you're not trained because you don't feel like you're enough unless you lose this thing that jiggles or your weight, the number on the scale goes down. Because you train to be, feel, and give your best so you can live greatly with no regrets. So you're going to train ideally in the morning, and some people say, well, I train at night. Let me just tell you why. This is a study, by the way. So we always hear that exercise improves sleep, but it turns out when you exercise, it might just matter as much what time you exercise, not just if you exercise. Now, if you can't, well, let me read this study. So new research found that exercising too close to bedtime, especially at a high intensity, can delay sleep onset, shorten sleep duration, lower sleep quality, and mess with your nighttime recovery. Researchers analyzed over 4 million nights of biometric sleep data from 14,689 active individuals who wore biometric devices for an entire year. They wanted to understand how exercise timing and intensity, they called this exercise strain, by the way. They wanted to know how the timing and the intensity affected your sleep. Now, high strain exercise up to 6 hours before bedtime delayed sleep onset, and harder workouts 2 hours before bed led to, let me say it again, harder workouts 2 hours before bed led to people falling asleep 36 minutes later. So they, instead of falling asleep at 10 p.m., they didn't fall asleep to 10:36 p.m. Now, if you do lighter exercise, it doesn't have as much of a profound effect. If you're trying to prioritize recovery, that's another way of saying that, is if you're trying to prioritize results and improvement, the scientists found that exercising within 4 hours before bed was linked to less sleep overall, increased resting heart rate, and decreased heart rate variability, all of which are signs of reduced recovery. The researchers believe intense exercise elevates adrenaline, core body temperature, and sympathetic nervous system activity, that's stress activity. These changes make it harder for the body to shift into your parasympathetic, or it's called rest and digest, instead of fight or flight. Rest and digest mode, where our body heals faster. And to be in rest and digest is essential for deep restorative sleep. Now, if you only have time to work out later in the day, choosing some exercise over no exercise is way better. So it's, if you just can't do it for whatever reason, then do it. But understand that if you're not sleeping well, it could be as simple as this. But that's really important. So one of the things for training is simply going to sleep and waking up at about the same time. When you think about sleep and recovery, we can say what time's that. What we're finding is if someone's consistent in going to sleep at 1 a.m. and waking up at 8 a.m. and they do that regularly, that's actually fine. Their body adapts to that. But if some nights you go to bed at 9 p.m., sometimes 3 a.m., and it's just sporadic, the body doesn't have a rhythm. And so when the body doesn't have a rhythm, it doesn't heal as well. It affects our hormones, those chemical messengers that regulate our metabolic processes. They're important. So the human body thrives on routine and consistency because it feels safe. So it stays out of fight or flight. Here's the simple reason. I mentioned rest and digest and fight or flight. Fight and flight, we're designed to be there for a short period of time and then to let it go and go right back to rest and digest. When we're in fight or flight, the body breaks down faster than it can repair itself. It is accelerated aging. That's why it's been said by almost every physician ever that's ever written a book about stress, says that about 80% of disease is caused by chronic ongoing stress. And this is the reason. Now, when you're in rest and digest, where you're centered, you're calm, you're poised, you're happy, you have an undercurrent of joy, not perfect, but you're not really angry. And then what happens, or really sad, if you're not middle ground, the body digests your food better. It absorbs and extracts the nutrients from your food. And then you can use that to rebuild, repair, recover, to renew your cells. That's what we need. That also, your hormones get balanced when you're at rest and digest. That's why breath is so important. But it's also why it's so critical to master your state of being, your thoughts and your feelings, so that you're at a place where your body can heal, and where if you want energy, that's how you do it. You start there. So the goal is to sleep and wake up about the same time as consistently as possible. Now, daily step count. This is something that I used to not take very seriously because I'm just naturally active. But when someone is walking, especially moving not very much throughout the day, even if they're training, they have more, one study showed that they have more inflammation that would lead to cardiovascular disease. And the only way to undo it was just by moving more. And so they say sitting, like Apple Watches actually you can have a setting where it tells you if you've been sitting for more than an hour so that you'll get up, because it's been said by some doctors that sitting for prolonged periods of time is the equivalent of smoking in terms of the effect on your health. So just move. Like, what's the minimum? About 7,000 steps. That's what it looks like right now. But the first step is to measure where you're at consistently and then gradually build up from there. And it's not about doing 20,000 one day. It's about just be the type of person that moves. So if you're doing a call, like as I'm recording this, I'm walking all over the place, and it's 9:08 a.m. and I'm at 4,000 steps. And so I'm not saying that I'm some Superman or anything. I'm just saying being aware of it changes the number, and it gives you that confidence because you're like, oh, I'm making progress. I'm checking that box. So make sure you get at least 7,000 steps a day. I know some of you, I love this when you send posts and you tell me that you were waiting for a flight and you walked around to get your steps in. That's beautiful, especially when you know you're going to sit down a long time. So what about the recovery stuff? Well, I mentioned sleep. The next one is hydration. And it's so simple, but one of the primary drivers of injury is lack of proper hydration. This includes your electrolytes, which are your minerals, sodium, potassium, magnesium, and chloride. But you don't have to go crazy with that. The most important thing is to get enough fluid. And so if you take your body and weight in pounds, divide in half, that's the minimum number of ounces per day that you want to target. And if you know, like say you're traveling stuff and you don't want to drink a lot of water because you don't know if there'll be a bathroom, try to drink more at night and then sip it throughout the day. And when you're done and you have access to a bathroom, then drink more then. But just get that in, because the first thing that happens when we don't get enough hydration, your organs have priority. So what happens? It pulls it from the joints and the muscles. That's why we get muscle cramps. But before you ever feel a cramp, the tension in the muscles is already changing. So your muscles move your bones. And so those muscles start to tighten, and everyone has certain areas that get tighter first. Sometimes it's in their neck, sometimes it's in their hamstrings, whatever it is. But it all starts with hydration. If you want to prevent injuries, a lot of people blame the exercise, or whatever they're doing whenever they get injured. So like I had a client way back in the day, he said he picked up a towel off the floor and his back went out. And he swore he just can't bend over and pick things up. Meanwhile, he's been doing it his whole life, he never had a problem. But we link up pain with certain things wherever we were at that time. So we had to break the belief, and I had to show him. We actually trained the movement, not picking up a towel, but touching a cone and touching the toe. Like we do single leg toe touches, right? Which is a great movement for balance and proprioception. But he was convinced of that. Really, he just didn't drink water hardly ever. He just mainline coffee all day long. And then he drank alcohol every night too. So he had to really improve his lifestyle in order to prevent his back from going all the time. Okay, so we got sleep, we got hydration for recovery, and then I just call it a fuel up routine. And here are the key points. Every nutrition plan needs to have consistency. So decide in advance how many meals a day you're gonna eat. Like we send you the blueprint, that's an example. You don't have to do that, but it's an example of something that's been proven to work. But are you gonna eat whenever you just kind of feel like it and you get super hungry? How's that gonna go, right? So decide. For what we found is that most people do great on 4 meals a day. And I'm not talking about snacks. You do not snack in between meals, otherwise you really get in trouble unless you're tracking your food. And so consistent meal times. So 3 or 4 tends to work best for most people. We've had people that eat 6 times a day. We had some people that eat 2 times a day, but they also track their food. So it's a little different. But if you're gonna guesstimate it by using your hand, then I would definitely choose the structure in advance. Are you gonna have how many meals per day, and when about are you gonna eat them? And whenever you do that, you balance your blood sugar levels and you have more energy, you have a stable mood and greater focus and even greater executive function. And so it's one of the primary drivers of willpower and self-control and decision-making. And so The most important thing that affects nutrition is the amount of fuel we ingest. We measure fuel in terms of calories in the body. It is the first law of thermodynamics. That means if you take in more energy than your body uses, that extra energy just doesn't disappear. It's going to be either converted into muscle if you're doing resistance training, or it's going to likely be stored as fat. That is the principle. If you eat way too little food for too long, you break down some fat, some water, and also lean body mass, which will lower your metabolic rate. And so there's a sweet spot, and this is why most people get stuck, because they don't know how much they're ingesting. And then whatever, say you're hitting the right numbers, your body adapts to it. It's called metabolic adaptation. So if you're eating enough and you lost 2 pounds of fat, the next week you lost 1 pound of fat, the third or fourth week, that's when the body usually adapts. And then now nothing happened. And then what do? Well, you can increase your daily step count, or you can reduce your calories. Which one are you gonna do? Or you're gonna do a little bit of both. That's how it works. It's that simple. The next thing is daily protein intake. No matter who you are, there's no gene for this because your body's made of water and then protein. When cells break down and they're reproduced, that process is called protein synthesis. So if you're not getting enough protein, enough amino acids, when you break down protein, it breaks them down into smaller parts, building blocks called amino acids. So if you ever heard that supplement. So if you get enough protein, you don't need amino acids. That's what that means. So protein rebuilds the body. When you look in the mirror, you are looking at protein. Your face, your hair, your eyes, your skin, but also your muscles, your connective tissue, your organs, all protein. So you got to get that. How much? Body weight in pounds times 0.8 would be the middle of the effective range. Now, if you want to optimize, the research is really clear in this right now. It's been tested many times, multiple studies, 1 gram per pound of body weight. That is what's ideal for sustaining or building muscle and losing fat. Now, if you have trouble, the first thing is to track and see how much you're having and gradually build up. Don't just, start shoveling it in because you're not gonna feel great probably. And there's other ways. If you get stuck and you just can't do it, let me know, shoot me a message, and I'll explain how to build that up in the body. So increase your digestion, absorption, and assimilation. It's actually quite simple. So after calories are the most important in protein. Those are the 2 primary factors. Then omega-3 fatty acids. Think of salmon, sardines, and supplements. Those are the best options here. And we do a lab test for this. And if you're in the undesirable range, and you get to the desirable range, which is 8 to 12%, on average, you'll live 5 years longer. Another study said 7.5 years. And so it's a little thing. Why is it? Well, your brain and nervous system are made of fats. These are fats that are anti-inflammatory in nature. So you need a dose of 1 to 3 grams per day. Almost everyone. I haven't seen anyone less than a gram improve. Usually it's 2 to 3 grams though. We've done a lot of these tests, so we have a lot of data on this. But omega-3s, it's literally something you can take to extend your life, but it's also Mother Nature's anti-inflammatory and cognitive enhancer. But you want to do it consistently because a lot of people, when we do their tests, they're low on this. And so now they have more inflammation. And in a future CoachCast, I'm going to explain where inflammation, chronic inflammation comes from and how to reverse it. And if you have dysfunction like an autoimmune disease or even type 1 diabetes, how to reverse that. And it sounds incredible, and it is, and it's real. And so you got your daily protein intake, your calories, your omega-3 fatty acids, and then you want to get enough fiber. Now, fiber is important because it's your prebiotics. It creates good bacteria in your gut. And it's not just one food with fiber, you want a diversity. And also when you have different colored foods and fruits and vegetables and high octane carbohydrates, those are carbohydrates close to their natural source, like a sweet potato. You wash it off, you bake it, you're good to go. It's not processed, so it's nutrient dense. And so what happens? Fibers also help absorb, bind, and remove toxins from the body. So it's a little thing. So we're learning all this stuff about Mother Nature has built in all these mechanisms to detoxify, to cleanse, to purify the body, to renew it, but we gotta provide them. And so you wanna make sure you're getting an array of vegetables, of fruits, especially different types of berries, and high octane carbs. And so The other thing I would recommend, this is the final thing, is cruciferous vegetables. I wrote this in Life Force in Tony's book, but there's so much research on cruciferous vegetables like broccoli. The highest one, the most potent, is broccoli sprouts that you can grow just in your kitchen or you can buy. And cauliflower, cabbage, and that could be sauerkraut, which is fermented, or kimchi, which is a Korean condiment. Just add like a tablespoon to your meals and you're gonna get these benefits. Kale is also one of them. And so these cruciferous vegetables are very powerful because they contain a compound called sulforaphane. Sulforaphane, the more often you ingest it, the lower your risk of cancer. 8 different types of cancer. So people that had it once a month fared better than people that didn't have it once a month. People that had it once a week compared to people that had it once a month did even better. So the more frequent, the better. And so 1 handful or 1 cup or 100 grams, if you measure it, per day of cauliflower, of broccoli, it could be broccoli rab, or if you really want a potent one, broccoli sprouts. Like I just have like a handful of them every day when I'm at home anyway. And then on the road, I'll actually take a supplement with me. I don't know if that works as good because there's no research on it, but it makes me feel better about myself. And so cruciferous vegetables. And so this is the checklist, and let's do it real quick. So to review, North Star process. Do it each morning at least as a bare minimum. Do it when you train. Step into that person that you need to be, that lion, that lioness. At the end of the day, clear the slate. Close the chapter in a day by reviewing the day, counting your victories, and then looking at what didn't go well, and then distilling the lessons, and then choosing the 3 most important things for the next day. Then the stimulus, summon the lion, train with focus and presence, strive to give more, strive to give best, give your best each week, each day. Then make sure you have a daily step count of at least 7,000 steps, really target 10,000, that's a better goal. But get to 7,000 first, progress, not perfection. Now, you stimulate the body through stress, through movement, and then you recover through sleep, hydration, and your nutrition. That is imperative. Now there's one other thing, and this is neglected. It is so important. It's BB3 Results Tracking System. And it is, I call it M3, like M mother, M3, measure, monitor, and modify for continuous improvement. If you don't know how much food you're eating, if you don't know how much fluids you're ingesting, if you don't know what your sleep is, if you don't know how you're training, if you're just randomly moving around or just adding stuff, it's not gonna happen, my friends. We have over 4,000 transformations. Everybody did these things. Now, but it's really, you can manage these, you can master these, but this is mandatory. If someone disagrees with this, I would run away from them because they have no clue what they're talking about. I've been doing this, I got my first punching bag and weight set when I was 4. This is in my DNA. This is what works. And so if you have questions on it, ask me anytime. It's my wish and my deep desire that you have the health, the fitness, the energy, vitality to live a life that makes you proud, that uplifts everyone you love, serve, and appreciate. And ultimately, when we take responsibility for ourselves, it makes our world a better place. You tap into the real you, but you have to retrain yourself. The way you retrain yourself is you wake your ass up in the morning and you say, I am here for a reason and a purpose. And it's bigger than my moods. It's bigger than the difficulties of the day. I am here to live like a lion, not the fear of a lamb.